Hello, guys. Can you hear me? All right, good. Well, today is our last class, so we're gonna get this going. Before we, before I start with the ACT writing, what I'm gonna do is I have some questions for you guys. So in the chat box, if you can please type your answers, okay? So go to chat and just start typing some. And it's all on a 1 to 5 scale, and I don't want to take too much time. Okay, so and some of them will be with the tutors as well. So let's get started here. Okay, my first question to you guys in the chat box: just put a number on a 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. How do you rate this spring ACT prep class? Yeah, just yeah, we don't have to complicate too much. It's a simple answer. Okay, so again, students who joined late, we are in the chat box. There was a question I have posed. How do you rate this spring ACT prep class as a whole thing? Okay, on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the highest. So if you can please respond to that one. Okay. Again, I just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to respond. Okay, so it will be really good if you guys can, give us some feedback. Second question is, including excluding me, okay, excluding me as a tutor, who is your best tutor? So we had three: Lauren, Rikav, and Aubrey. Who is your according to you, who was your best tutor? Again, in the chat box, just type the name. Okay. Next question to you guys: which section would you have preferred more help? You would have preferred more help in this prep program. Which section you would have preferred more help? So it is English, math, reading, or science. Which one you needed more practice? Next question. On a 1 to 5 scale, how likely would you recommend this prep program to any of your friends? With five being strongly recommend or completely recommend, one not recommend at all. All right. On the next question, this is specifically for math. Okay. So me and Aubrey taught math for both sections, regular and advanced. On a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the highest again and one, how difficult was the math section for you guys? So this is just for the math section. In the chat box, you have to reply on a 1 to 5 scale. How hard was the math, what we taught? 5 being very hard. Couple more questions. After, so there will be two responses to this question on a 1 to 5 scale. Again, 5 being the highest. Before you took this prep class and after you took the prep class, how likely you think you will increase your scores in ACT Prep Composite by at least 3 points? So before and after, I want 2 scores for each student. So before and after, how likely are you gonna increase your ACT Prep score by at least 3 points after this prep class? And make sure you have two numbers for this one. This cannot be just one. All right. Next question. This is specifically to me, okay? I've been doing this for 15 years, as many of you are aware of it. The question is on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being Manoj should continue teaching and not just the tutors. 1 being Manoj should not teach anymore and only other tutors should teach this prep class. So how do you rate me as somebody to continue teaching ACT Prep? All right. I've been getting a lot of responses, so thank you very much. Now, for the next couple minutes, if you don't mind turning your cameras on, just for a couple more minutes, and then I would like to take a picture here, and then we're gonna turn the cameras off and get started with the class. So just a couple minutes, if you don't mind. Oh, there's one question I forgot to ask you. If you still can reply in the group text is, would you prefer face-to-face or online? This is only for students who had chance for both, okay? Would you prefer face-to-face or online? This is only for students who had a choice. All right. Well, with that, you guys can go ahead and turn the cameras off, and we're gonna get started with ACT writing. If you want to turn off your cameras. All right. We are going to start with the ACT prep, ACT writing. Um, what I would suggest is, and this is pretty important, okay? If you are going to be taking ACT, if you're taking the test for the first time ever, then do not register for the ACT writing. But if you are going to take it second time onwards, I strongly suggest you to do ACT writing. Whether the school, college you're going are interested, whether they accept it, whether they want ACT writing score or not, doesn't matter. You need to make sure that you have an ACT writing score. Okay? So first time, don't take it. Second time onwards, make sure to take the ACT writing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write on the whiteboard many stuff, and then you guys can also write it down and ask questions. So when somebody asks questions, the others may not understand that because I'm using my microphones, but I'll be able to repeat the question for everybody. Okay. All right. We're gonna get started with ACT writing, and tell me if you can actually see this correctly or clearly. Can you see this? Awesome. Very good. Very good. All right. Let's get started, guys. So 40 minutes. This is 40 minutes. It used to be 30 minutes. Now it's 40 minutes. This is on top of the regular test. So when you take the writing test, you're adding an hour almost because the instructions and stuff like that. So by the time you come out of this, you're looking at 12:30, 1 o'clock. So you'll be extremely tired. And that's the reason we do not recommend you taking for the first time, because you do not know how it feels initially. Then you get used to this. So it's a long, long time. Okay. You get one prompt. And you'll be graded on a 2 to 12 score. So this doesn't impact your composite ACT score. This is a standalone score that does not impact your ACT composite score. And you need at least 8 to be, it's called CRI, College Readiness Index. You need at least 8 to be college ready level writing. 8 is not too bad in terms of getting a score of 8. It's very possible. 10 and above, it's getting very hard. I've had no students at New Horizon get a 12. We had 11, maybe 1. We had few 10s, a lot of 9s and 8s and so forth. So it's not that easy per se to get an 8. You have to do a little decent job. Only because the grading system is pretty unique. So on a 2 to 12 scale, how do they grade this writing test? So you have 2 ACT readers grading individually on a 1 to 6 scale. So that's why 1 plus 1 is 2, 6 plus 6 is 12. That's the 2 to 12 range you get. So individually they grade it. So let's say this guy gives you a score of 4, and let's say this guy gives you a score of 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. That is your ACT writing score. But let's say this guy gives you a 2, but let's say this guy gives you a 5. Now the difference is more than 2 points. Then this is not going to be considered because the point difference is more than 2. At that time, a third final reader will decide the score from a 2 to 12 range if the point difference is more than 2 points. So this is kind of interesting, called the arbitration process. And this can happen, okay? These readers follow a strict rubric system. So they have a strict rubric system to follow. But still, at the end of the day, these are the humans grading papers, so hopefully they don't use ChatGPT or anything like that going forward to grade your papers. But this is what is anticipated in terms of grading. Now, before I continue, I want to see if there's any questions. I don't want to rush this. You guys good? Oh, they don't share the rubric with us. This is not available. And each prompt has its own rubric. So, no, it's not available. So the question was, can we share this rubric? This is not publicly available. And every prompt has its own rubric. Good question. I know some of you did take the ACT writing in the April test. Do a thumbs up if you took the ACT writing in the April test. I know at least one or two did. Okay, I see Nick. Okay. Hey, Nick, do you remember what was the prompt? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Options. Yeah. Okay. All right. And it looks like Elijah took it as well. Okay. So they give one prompt. Okay. All right. All right. Now let's talk a little bit more about how to prep and stuff like that. All right. So let's get started here. So this is how your ACT booklet will look like for the ACT writing. So when you get to the writing portion, you'll see two sides, clear side and the line side. Okay, this is the first important step. This is a non-gradable section. And this is the gradable section. This is something you guys have to be very careful if you don't know this, because anything you write on this does not get graded. Anything you write on this does get graded. So you need to watch for this one. Next, the prompt will be at the top. This is where the prompt will be. Okay? All right, now you have 40 minutes, which is plenty time, okay? So we have designed a strategy to split this into 3 sections, 10, 20, 10. And typically, this also kind of works in college level writing as well, okay? So when the time starts for you, when the supervisor says the time starts now, and you have 40 minutes, the first 10 minutes are actually very important, where you are actually working on the ideas and analysis. Okay, and I'll explain a little bit more about this. So what does it mean by ideas and analysis? So you read the prompt and you need to actually think about it. Write down your ideas on this section. Rough draft, keywords, and goes in here. So, and take your time to think through and understand the prompt. And if you don't understand the prompt, that of course is a big problem. If you do understand the prompt, you need to kind of think in detail what you want to write on. So, years back there was a prompt, which is one of my favorite prompts actually. The prompt was, should middle school students be allowed to use social media? This was, I believe, was in 2017 or 18, something like that, a few years back. So, Well, everybody has their own take on this, right? Some people like social media. As a parent myself, I don't want kids to be using social media ever, period, irrespective of middle school or not. So everybody has their own thing. Question is, question is, what do you prefer? So let's say for that particular prompt, you'd say that, okay, I know the social media should not be allowed for middle school students. Then I create a rough draft, some keywords, some ideas on this section. This is where it is very important. So I want you to listen to this very carefully. You have three boxes they'll give you here. 1, 2, and 3. This is called perspective boxes. This is important. And you should not read them till you have done your complete analysis and ideas here. So, I repeat, do not read the perspective boxes till this is done. So for the social media one, let's say I decide to write that I do not want middle school students to use social media. Then I'll read perspective 1, 2, and 3, and hopefully my idea, my thoughts will match at least with one of these. If it doesn't, of course you're gonna have some trouble because you're not sure which one to pick at the time. If you read the perspective boxes before, you'll be influenced by what is already given. So your analysis should coincide with this. And many a times it does actually. So I repeat, do not read the perspective boxes till the analysis is done. And let's say, assume that this is matching with your perspective 2, for example, then write down here very clearly perspective number 2. You are required to clearly state what perspective you're writing on. If they don't know that, you'll automatically lose at least a point. That means 2 readers will lose total of 2 points. And you do not want that. Okay, any questions so far? Excuse me. All right, now we go to this 20 minutes where you actually start writing. This is where you start writing. So what are the key things you're looking in this 20 minutes? You have to develop your response using good supporting evidence. Use examples. Have a clear organization which should be coming from this section here. This section should help you in the organization of the flow of the response. Flow is extremely important. Flow is extremely important. And when you are writing your response, it should be 5 paragraphs. First being the introduction. Of course, you guys know this. Last being, and the last one is the conclusion. This is something people miss, especially nowadays. We have seen students really don't know how to write, period. And when they write, there's no flow to it. Flow includes organization, how well it reads, how well it follows. Does it have proper grammar? Does it follow good convention? Does it have good handwriting? You are supposed to have decent handwriting. I'm sorry, if you don't have good handwriting, you're actually going to be in trouble, because if they can't read it, they won't be able to grade it. And this is again getting worse lately. That's what I've been hearing. Do not use text language. Again, you guys are used to it, right? You're used to the text language. No, you're not. You cannot use that one. The people who are reading this essays do not understand the Gen Z and your generation of students, most likely. So you have to make sure that you are not using text language and all those things. You're allowed to be, you can use humor, you can use emotion in your language. That's actually is usually recommended. Avoid eyes. This is my problem. People write a lot of times with eyes. Try your hardest to avoid eyes, and that should be done during this time. When you're designing this, you should be thinking, okay, how should I avoid eyes? Now, very important point. When you are writing your response, you have two choices. If you have experienced this prompt, like for example, if I was a student who has gone through this generation and used social media, then I would write it as me, my own example. If I've not experienced this, then I have to write it as a third party. So third party is allowed only if you have not experienced it. If you have experienced it, then I would write it as me, my own examples. And this is where your supporting evidence becomes stronger. So your supporting evidence becomes really stronger if you have experienced this. This is a huge advantage for that one. And usually the prompts they select, they know the high school students and they try to connect that way that you can use your own example. Of course, there was an example years back about some climate change and stuff like that, which many of the high school students may not have experienced. So that was a bad one. But there was another good question, a prompt, I think 2-3 years back. I really liked this one. Should music be a requirement for high school graduation? A music course be a requirement for high school graduation? And that was a great example as a high schooler writing this, because you have experienced it. Some people like music, some don't. I don't know why would somebody not like music, but there may be some person who won't like music. So that's a great example for a prompt. But they really try their hardest to make sure that the prompts are a good representation of a high school student. So many a times your supporting evidence usually matches. But if you have not experienced it, you got to write it as a third party. Okay? Do not just fake it, because they can read it between the lines. What else? Okay, I'm going to stop here for a second and see if you guys have any questions. Okay, so Nick has a question about how, if you're writing it as an own example, how do you avoid eyes? You have to start your statement. See, people, even including me, sometimes I say, hey, I tend to do this and I do this. So you can reframe the statement to avoid eyes. In the past, and the example I would say, in the past, my experience suggests, instead of saying, I did this. Nick, does that make sense to you? Yeah. It is about reformatting or restating your and that's why when you're doing the ideas, you try your hardest to say, okay, how should I avoid ice? And people really undermine this 10 minutes and they start directly writing. That's why their quality of the essay is not good. If you want to have a top-notch essay, you got to spend time in ideas and analysis. Make sense, Nick? Yeah, as Blake says, can I use my instead of I's? My is okay. My school, my life, my experience is a lot better than saying I did this. One of the things they look for is the student relying on a certain intent, convention all through. If that is what they see it, then if you see use my all the time, that's also a turn off for them. So you do not want to be so predictable in your response. You want to be using your because this is for high school students and you have learned English 1, English 9, English 10, English 11 by the time you usually take writing test. So they know that you have done a lot of English classes and grammar classes. So they want to see, can you bring all this together in a in the best possible way. That's why we do not recommend any middle school students to be taking writing tests at this early on because they have not gone through the whole convention system. So, but if you're an 11th grader, which they usually know that you're an 11th grader, and you write it more like a middle schooler, then you tend to lose more points. So they also grade based on your what grade you're in, which is usually pretty available for them if they want to check it. Does it make sense, Blake? Good questions, though. This is important, and this is what you have to carry to the college as well. I know. I still teach chemistry, and sometimes the responses are very alarming. It's pretty shocking the way kids write nowadays. You know, and yeah, Sahara, you have a question? Go ahead. No, you're good. Go ahead. Sahara's question is, do you follow what they teach in school, the normal convention? Yes, you follow the normal convention. Yes. But the problem is the convention, even if you follow the convention, what you're taught in school, the quality of the writing really matters. And that's what I call the flow. And people write things to make it 2 3 pages. God, please don't do that. It's not the quantity of your essay, it's the quality of the essay that is one graded on. But for sure, if your essay is less than half a page, you sure will not get anywhere close to 8. I recommend 2 pages, up to maximum 2 pages, maximum 2 pages of your response. With a decent handwriting, a font size of your writing, you should have 2 pages. This is more like a half page. Open next page, full 1 page, and another half page. 2 pages in a 5 paragraph format. You should write, your introduction should be so good that you're drawn to reading the rest of the other paragraphs. If your introduction is boring, you tend to lose that initial points right away because they have approximately 60 seconds to read and grade. So they don't have much time. There's thousands of essays they have to grade. So they are not going to waste too much time reading like a novel and sipping coffee. No, they won't do that. They'll be very, very quick when they grade. And these are seasoned graders, so they have done this for a long, long time. So they can tell the quality of the essay very, very quick. So if your introduction is good, then they're going to read the next paragraph and so forth. And you got to kill this at the conclusion of what you need to say. Another important thing, I want you to listen to this carefully. You will have to write perspective of what you're writing on. If this is not clear, again, I said you'll lose points. You need to compare your perspective with another perspective. It's a requirement here as well. So let's say you're writing a perspective number 2, and let's say that's about social media. I don't want to use social media. You need to write about another perspective without being condescending or being, negative. You cannot say that somebody who wants social media is stupid. You cannot say that. You have to say your concerns, and maybe there are some positive points about the other perspective without nullifying or diluting your perspective. So I repeat, when you are talking about your perspective and you're comparing with one more perspective, just one more, not more, don't do more than one. Stay positive all throughout. Don't be condescending, but at the same time, do not support the other perspective so much that you lose credibility of your own perspective. So you can make a couple of comments, couple of lines on the other perspective and get back to your perspective, especially in the middle section of the essay. That's where you need to be on the other perspective, not on the introduction, not on the conclusion. So in the middle paragraphs, the 2, 3, 4, that's where you need to say, I do understand people who don't who like social media has their own positives, but however, I have this experience or this that I do not believe number one or three. Number one is a good perspective, and I would like to, and then continue with more examples on your own case. Try your best. I'm not saying you should avoid. Nick is asking a question about eyes. Yes, try your best, but if there is one or two and spread out, it's okay. But again, if I see 50 eyes in this, then I think you'll have a very low score. Yeah, don't be repetitive in my's and eyes, but eyes for sure is a big turnoff. I'll tell you, when I see when I we do college consultation and we evaluate quite a bit of essays. Like I do essay after essays evaluation. The first thing I look for is if the student is talking about eyes. And the one I graded last year for a college consultation program, out of 650 words, that kid used at least, I believe, 45 times eyes. So you're saying that out of 650, that's almost 10% of your words are eyes. You lost that space and time to make your case, because eyes is considered a word and you used up one of those. So that also says that you don't have much to say. The quality starts decreasing exponentially as more eyes come into picture. And this is what you have to practice at school too, by the way. Sahara was asking about normal convention. When you guys are practicing at school, this is what you need to be thinking very hard into that one. Okay, what do I need to do about writing? How to make my essays better? And I can tell you guys right now, as you go up in your college and jobs, let's say you become a CEO or a president, vice president, more higher levels you go, the quality of writing must increase. One of the things I wish my teachers in India would have done is to be more critical about writing. I had to learn quite a bit on myself after coming to United States. which is not the best way. And I've recommended this to my schools back in India, is to make writing very hard, technical writing. It has to be the point. It has to point. It has to follow grammar, proper grammar and convention. If you don't use grammar, you lose the most points. First is flow, and second is grammar. If these two are good, they'll kind of let go other things. But if these two fail, your scores, like last year, had quite a bit of students get 6 out of 12. And one of the things I can say is grammar. Excuse me, they didn't have good grammar. So let me ask you this question. Well, it's hard for others to hear you guys respond. Maybe one or two I can respond to this. How many essays do you guys write in your 10th grade English? So Elijah says 4 to 5 essays per semester. So Elijah, I want to ask you this question, follow-up question. How is it graded, and how do you know your writing comes to the standards? Is it just teacher grading it and that's it? Okay, yeah. If it's an, and I would follow the AP English, AP Lit, AP English standards quite a bit, because this is graded by not by your teacher, somebody else is grading your paper, and they have a certain rubric and system to follow. But do not undermine the quality of the writing at this age, because once you're used to writing really good now, it's going to really help in your careers. And I can tell you that's one of my biggest regret. I'm a STEM major, I'm a chemical engineering major. English in India, they didn't care much about it, it's whatever. But I can tell you now, I wish they had technical writing for us. I don't care about creative writing so much. I need technical writing to the point. And my vice president at college for finance and operations, he had technical writing. He took years of technical writing, and he went to University of Nebraska Lincoln, and he was a math major and an accounting major, but he took a lot of extra technical writing classes, and I can see in his when he writes, it's amazing. And so he writes all the memos for me as a college president, and his quality is amazing. And that's what I would recommend to you guys. Do not think this is just another assignment. Try to get it done. Try to take this opportunity to be good in technical writing. Uh, Another point I would say about this, back to ACT writing, you have to practice at least one prompt before you take the real test. And somebody at home or your friends, your school teacher, somebody should grade who understands the ACT writing strategies and format. So if you don't practice this, again you'll be in for a big surprise that day, because you still don't know how to do this. So practice at least one. Better is two. Don't do more than two. Two is plenty of practice, because the prompts will change. So does your writing and strategies. But if you do one or two, you'll have enough experience of how to write this. What else? I think I've covered everything. Oh, one. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that, Nick. But the last 10 minutes, I'm still on the 20-minute side. But one more thing in the 20-minute side is, do not bullshit, do not BS, and people write gibberish language. Just write, run write, and just try to fill up the space. Don't do that, because it's actually gonna hurt you more than help it all. So, any other questions in the so far? Anybody else? Any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. Question. Sarah's question is, if you do really well in ACT writing, does it appeal to universities and colleges? Yes, it does, especially if you're a mass media communication major. And even for, to be honest, even if you're an engineering major or a pre-med major, they will see your writing and it's like, oh my God, if she gets 11 or a 12, she should be excellent. So I think it's only going to help you if you have a good score. So I would strongly suggest to target 10, not 8, if you're applying for competitive schools. Good question. Nobody had asked me that question before. I said we had 11 once. That's maybe once or twice. That's it. We had a lot of 10s and 9s, but 12 is. I know of a student who was not New Horizons student who had a 12, and she had a 1590 SAT out of 1600. So top student, and you know, she went to Columbia, I believe, and I think she was in a flight with me, and she was sitting next, and we just got chatting, and she was telling me that she went to Columbia, and she was majoring in economics with a minor in sociology. So pretty cool combination. I can see that student had a great future. So all right, let's go to the last 10 minutes. This is the problem for me. People finish this writing and they give the test paper and they leave because they're tired and so forth. You should not be doing that. So in the last 10 minutes, you should read the entire essay, the one you wrote. Okay? So I'm just gonna go here. So read the essay completely. Correct your mistakes. As when I say correct mistakes, it can be spelling, grammar. Spelling is, oh my God, don't even think of making spelling mistakes. Some people try to throw in some fancy words just to look cool. Kinda allowed, but it has to have a space, appropriate location for that one, and don't be forced into throwing some fancy words. Because if they really change the meaning of it, it's gonna hurt your essay more than help. Read the essay, correct mistakes, focus on first and last paragraph. I cannot emphasize these two. So important. And you should be done with 2 minutes to spare so that you don't rush through and you spoil your handwriting or anything like that. So 40 minutes is plenty. This is plenty of time. And you should be in a position to complete this very systematically with proper evidence and not rushing. And if you don't do this, trust me, like anybody else, proofread your essay, because you'll be amazed of how many mistakes you would have done. And I would not be focusing too much at that time because you'll use that in the 10 minutes. So 10, 20, 10 should be like more like 10, 28. So by 38 minutes, you're done completely. Then you should be good to go. But many students I've seen, and I've asked them, they're like, usually they're done here. They leave here. And I asked them, did you read your own essay? And if you have not read it, there's a good chance that the person who is grading may not like it, because if you can't read your own essay, you have a problem. Yeah, Kirti, you have a question? Go ahead. Okay, Kirti, I'm not understanding your question, so can you try again? Can you paraphrase it? Okay. Kirti has a question. She struggles with creating a good introduction paragraph. So she's asking, should I wait on it till the end or start with introduction? Here's my main point, main answer. If you cannot have a good introduction, your essay will not be good because you have to start with introductions and you have to flow from it. So you cannot write introduction based on how the other paragraphs are. So it's not. Don't reverse this process. Have a good. That's why in the first 10 minutes, spend time on introduction. Think through how you want to start this essay. And that's why I always say the first paragraph is so important because that sets the tone for everything else. But I have a recommendation for you. I don't mind you guys, you mind editing your introduction after the entire essay is written. Go making changes. Oh, by the way, you have to use pencil, don't use pen. Uh, I've seen had one student write it in pen and it was like all messy and stuff like that. So use pencils only. But yeah, I'm okay with editing the introduction paragraph after the whole thing is done, but do not create an introduction after the whole thing, the rest is written. Kirti, make sense? And by the way, you're not the only one who struggles with introduction. I would say 90% of the students, 90% of the people, period, struggle with writing introduction, including me. So when I was a student, when I was a college student, I struggled in introductions because, and that's why proofreading, proofreading is so important to make your introduction so good. So when we do the college consultation program, we spend the most time in introduction. And I will give an example of a student essay we wrote. Okay, she finished her her undergraduate studies at Notre Dame, and I'll tell you this. This is a great example for you, for everybody. So she was writing a prompt about her background. So the prompt was, tell us something about about your background that a resume or a cover letter cannot cover it. So and she had written her about her background and all those things, but it was not clicking to me. It was not making the connection for the reader to read the whole thing. It was kind of boring. So what we did was the first couple of words we wrote was $12, like literally $12 dot dot dot. That's all we wrote in the first line. A little space, then we started writing, but nowhere we told what the $12 was. Nowhere. They had to read the second paragraph, they had to read the third paragraph, they had to keep reading, being curious what the $12 was. At the end of the whole essay, at the conclusion, we concluded in saying that that's the money her mother makes per hour. Her mother was a single mother and she was making $12 an hour and taking care of 7 kids. But that $12 made the reader read throughout the paragraph. Oh, try to find out. I'm just curious. Humans are curious people. So like, okay, what is $12? And they kept reading and reading and reading. Only till the last line they will find out what that $12 was. So that's the another thing to bring is the curiosity. Make them curious about what you're trying to say without giving them the whole picture right away. Another example was at University of Michigan. Had a question. It was a 100-word question. What is the activity? This was from a student. He got 35, went to engineering in Michigan. He's still in Michigan right now, as I believe he's a junior or senior. He's from Ida Grove, Iowa. And the question was, what is the one high school activity you would like to continue in college at Michigan? And he wrote 100 words. I would like to play golf. Boom, done, right? That's what he wrote, and it was kind of boring. Well, we changed it. We made it into we built interesting terminologies to make them curious what it was. The activity I would want to continue is very frustrating, yet sometimes rewarding. Needs patience, sometimes challenges the sanity. So we built that curiosity, and at the end, and the activity is called golf. So we made them read and at the same time told about my character, about the student's character in that one. So it was like a very smartly crafted response. And I think we took the most time in responding to that one because it was only 100 words. So this is what we do when we do college consultation is we focus on every word and we try to make the best case scenario of the essay. Does that make sense, Kirti? Yeah, and by the way, as I'm going to repeat this, everybody struggles with introduction. As a 9 in 10 struggle. Yeah, you're not the only one. Anybody else have any other questions? Nick has a question. Okay, Nick has a question on titling the essay. What do we have to write a title? No, that's done by the perspective. That's why you have to write what perspective it is. If you don't write a perspective number, then they do not know what it is. And I said, you will definitely lose a lot of points. And if you don't compare with one more perspective, you're going to lose a lot more points. But you should not, and you do not have to title your essay. Make sense, Nick? You guys have actually asked really good questions, honestly speaking. It's actually going to help you guys in your school as well. It's really good questions. How many, just do a thumbs up, how many are doing June ACT test first? Just if you're taking the June ACT test. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not okay. I thought more people would be taking that. Okay, 4 or 5. Out of that, how many are taking with writing? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 2 or 3. Another thing I want to answer this question, and we get this almost all the time. When you take the test, you get your scores first from the English, Math, Reading, Science, the composite ACT score first, and the writing scores can come anywhere between 3 weeks and 8 weeks. So again, as I mentioned, it's not going to impact your composite score, but writing scores take way more time than your normal scores, which is just scanned through. So don't freak out if you don't see a score. It's going to take time. Is there any student who is not planning to take the writing at all? Do a thumbs up so I know if there is anybody who's not planning to take a writing test. Good, because you got to take a whether the school you're interested to take wants it or not. You really want to have a ACT writing score of 8 and higher. It's gonna send a strong message to the college. And if you're looking at top schools like Sahara was mentioning, I would be looking at 10 plus scores, especially if you're majoring in mass media, communications, psychology, anything that requires significant writing. You're looking at the writing scores. All right, so we're going to end this class with another one more question survey. Okay. On a 1 to 5 scale, were you happy that you took this class? 5 being, yes, very happy. 1, not happy at all. And I hope you guys been honest with us because these, evaluations are something we take things seriously. I've been getting some responses, so okay. Some students were asking me whether we are doing any ACT prep class in summer. No, we are not doing summer prep classes since last year. I've been just need a break. And but of course we're doing a fall class. So students who are in the regular level should really think about taking the advanced classes. And I've been trying to contact some parents already who I think are ready for advanced. Some students need to repeat the regular classes, especially if you're in middle school, who are in this class trying to, and moving to high school. You'll have to repeat this class, the regular level. Students who are in the advanced level, hopefully you're done with the ACTs very soon, and move on to the college admission process. But it's been a pleasure for all of us. Honestly speaking, actually, compared to the last fall class, this spring class was more active, more responsive, good Q&A, and I think I personally had a great time. And I don't know if any of our tutors talked to you guys. This is the first time we actually have covered more like 110% of what we had planned. So we actually have covered more than what we had planned this time, which usually doesn't happen. We are usually at 95%, 98%, but this time we are at like 110%. So we will go back to our notes and see what happened. But one thing we do know why it happened is you guys were very responsive and we didn't waste time waiting for students to respond. And that might be one of the reasons as well. So, winter has been harsh for all of us. It still is kind of cold. Hopefully, spring can give us some good weather, and hopefully, you guys can finish up school. GPA really matters to you guys. Don't screw up on GPA. Have a wonderful spring, summer. Once my belief is once you're a student always. So if you have any questions, anytime, get hold of me. I'm here to help you guys. God bless you guys. Take care of yourself, and I will see you guys sometime. Bye bye. Take care. Thank you guys. Thanks for the comments.